Pause whatever you're doing this instant because the revelation I'm about to deliver over the next few minutes might genuinely save your life or the life of someone dear to you. A stealthy virus is now circulating through the United States and scattered regions globally, one that physicians seldom mention during routine visits, that television networks rarely highlight, and that is silently rushing folks, particularly adults beyond age 60, into intensive care wards with virtually zero advance notice. It goes by the name Hantavirus, and right here I'll break down precisely what it represents, the pathway it takes into your system, the damage it inflicts once inside, and above all, the immediate steps every single adult over 60 needs to implement this week to shield themselves and their loved ones. If this is your first time on the channel, know that I am a doctor, a dedicated researcher, and the writer of studies referenced by top medical centers nationwide. For decades, I have examined how illnesses impact older bodies in ways that differ sharply from younger ones, and the details I am revealing today carry real urgency. Data released by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention shows that the death rate for the most severe version of hantavirus, known as Hantavirus Pulmonary Syndrome, falls between 38 and 50%. In other words, nearly half of those who contract the intense lung version of this illness do not pull through. And here is the overlooked detail they are not broadcasting loudly. Adults past the age of 60, whose immune defenses have naturally weakened by as much as 60% relative to a 30-year-old, rank among the most at-risk individuals alive to this virus at present. Before we plunge deeper, I want to pose a personal question, and I truly value your reply since I read every comment posted here. Share right now in the comments. What is your age, and have you lately been close to a cabin, storage shed, barn, garden plot, or any area possibly harboring mice or rodents? You could be stunned by what surfaces when you pause and reflect honestly. Post your age and your response below. I guarantee I will read everyone. Now I will guide you through all the vital facts on hantavirus, covering its identity, transmission methods, its precise effects on the body and sequence, documented real-life infections, and the most essential safeguards ranked from helpful all the way to the ultimate game changer you can enact today. We will count down from 5 to 1, and I ask you to remain until the finish, since number 1 holds the detail that might separate survival from tragedy. And I will say upfront that the top item on this list is something hardly any senior practices, and the explanation behind it will catch you off guard. Let us begin at the foundation. What precisely defines hantavirus? Picture it like this. Envision your body as a bustling city, with your immune system serving as the security team guarding every intersection. Now picture a tiny, cunning intruder that sneaks past a ventilation duct into your lungs, evades every security post, and heads directly to the central power plant, your cardiovascular and respiratory systems in this scenario. That intruder is hantavirus. It is a single-stranded RNA virus, meaning it transports its genetic blueprint in a delicate yet remarkably effective strand that hijacks your cells and commands them to produce duplicates of itself. It falls within the Bunявiridae virus family and has existed on Earth for millennia, residing discreetly among rodent groups. The deer mouse serves as the main host across North America. The rodent rarely suffers illness itself. It merely harbors the virus in saliva, urine, and feces, releasing it steadily into surroundings without any obvious signals or alerts. Multiple varieties of hantavirus exist worldwide. In North America, the dominant strain behind serious cases is sin nombre virus, which translates ironically from Spanish to mean the virus without a name. It first surfaced in 1993 amid an outbreak in the Four Corners area of the American Southwest, where a group of young, otherwise healthy Navajo people succumbed to an unexplained breathing sickness that puzzled doctors. In South America, the Andes virus strain has triggered outbreaks across Argentina, Chile, and Brazil, earning the alarming status of the sole hantavirus known to transmit directly from one person to another. In Asia and Europe, various strains trigger hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome, targeting the kidneys instead of the lungs, Every one of these varieties targets the precise immune weaknesses that build up naturally with age. Now let us examine transmission, because this section demands your full focus. The chief infection route is through breathing it in. You inhale the particles. When carrier rodents urinate, defecate, or release saliva inside a sealed area, a garage, attic, basement, winter shut cabin, garden shed, or even an unused old vehicle, the virus clings to fine dust and turns airborne. As you step into that area, sweep droppings unprotected or shift boxes untouched for months, those unseen particles enter your lungs and the process starts. Studies in the journal Emerging Infectious Diseases indicate the virus stays potent and contagious in the surroundings for days, and under cool, dry, protected conditions, it may linger even longer. Additional infection paths involve direct touch with rodent feces or nesting debris, followed by contact with your face, eyes, or mouth. Evidence also points to spread via rodent bites, although this occurs far less often. And as noted earlier, the Andes virus in South America shows confirmed instances of person-to-person spread via intimate contact with a sick individual, prompting global researchers to monitor it closely. All scientific sources for today's information appear in the description under this video, and I urge you to review them. Here is a vital point every adult over 60 must absorb. Past age 65, your mucociliary clearance, the network of microscopic hair-like projections coating your breathing passages that capture and expel foreign matter before it reaches deep lung areas, loses efficiency by roughly 30 to 40% per research from Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. This leaves the body's initial barrier against breathed-in threats, like hantavirus, notably feebler than it was decades earlier. Particles a 35-year-old might inhale and partly expel before hitting deep lung zones are far more likely in a 68-year-old to arrive at the alveoli. Those microscopic air pockets deep inside the lungs handle gas exchange and become the site of hantavirus's worst destruction. So what unfolds once hantavirus invades? Here I will outline the timeline because grasping the sequence proves absolutely key. The incubation window, the gap from contact to symptom onset, spans 1 to 8 weeks, though most notice signs between 2 and 4 weeks post-exposure. This extended quiet phase ranks among the deadliest traits of the virus, since you can feel perfectly normal while an internal crisis brews unseen. The condition opens in the prodromal stage. View this stage as the horizon growing dark ahead of a storm. Over the initial 3 to 5 days, the person feels symptoms nearly identical to ordinary flu: fever, exhaustion, body pains, especially in major thigh, hip, and back muscles, head pain, lightheadedness, and occasional shivering. A few mention stomach upset or vomiting. At this early point, the great majority of people, including many doctors not actively seeking it, would never suspect hantavirus. They would diagnose flu, COVID-19, or routine viral trouble. This interval lets the virus quietly multiply within the cells coating blood vessels, termed endothelial cells. As numbers grow, it starts making those cells permeable, and here the situation shifts dramatically. Between 4 and 10 days after first symptoms, the illness advances to the cardiopulmonary stage. This is the stage driving patients to emergency departments. With lung blood vessels growing ever more porous, liquid pours into the air pockets. Lungs that ought to stay light and porous like a sponge now flood with fluid. The sufferer faces swiftly intensifying breathing difficulty. Not gentle shortness, but a frightening, desperate struggle for air. Blood oxygen crashes, blood pressure falls. The heart, fighting to circulate blood amid oxygen shortage, starts to falter. This state, Hantavirus Pulmonary Syndrome, can escalate from initial breathing trouble to total lung collapse in just 24 to 48 hours. Numerous patients need breathing machines and intensive care placement inside 1 day once breathing worsens. That explains why swift detection matters so much and why I address you now before you or a loved one ends up in that crisis. Those who endure the cardiopulmonary stage under advanced ICU support often reach a diuretic stage where surplus lung fluid gets removed by the kidneys. Healing may require weeks or months, and certain survivors describe ongoing tiredness and diminished lung function persisting for years. No targeted antiviral medication exists yet for hantavirus. Care remains fully supportive. Oxygen supply, breathing assistance, fluid balance, and patience. This is not an illness solved by a simple prescription and discharge. Prevention stands paramount. Now, I will share true stories of affected individuals so you grasp this threat is concrete, not abstract. These come from verified medical records and health department reports. In May 2012, a 37-year-old man from Yosemite National Park in California, we will refer to him as Robert, not his actual name but matching the case profile, lodged in one of the classic tent cabins at Curry Village inside the park. He went home and within 3 weeks suffered fast-advancing breathing collapse. He became one of 10 verified hantavirus infections tied to that Yosemite outbreak that season. 3 of the 10 perished. CDC probes uncovered rodent signs inside the cabin wall insulation. Thousands of guests who occupied those cabins required alerts and monitoring. The event hit national headlines and prompted total cabin redesigns. In 2020, authorities documented a case in Washington state with a man in his early 60s, we will name him Gerald, who devoted a weekend clearing an abandoned storage barn on his countryside land. A retired farmer in decent health, he skipped any breathing gear while cleaning since he had performed identical tasks many times before without trouble. Within 2 weeks, he felt what seemed like a bad cold escalating to pneumonia. He entered the hospital and received a ventilator within 48 hours of arrival. He lived after 18 days in intensive care, yet needed 8 months of lung therapy afterward and said his breathing never recovered its prior level. In Chile and Argentina, the Andes strain has triggered several verified clusters of human-to-human spread, including a 2019 outbreak in Argentina's Chubut province that produced 29 confirmed infections and 11 fatalities. Officials traced transmission chains through families and even one recorded transfer to a medical staff member treating an infected patient. The World Health Organization released advisories afterward, with scientific links in the video description below. In Colorado, Utah, and New Mexico, states inside the long-standing sin nombre zone, health offices routinely note scattered incidents, especially during spring and summer, when rodent numbers surge and outdoor buildings see more human traffic. In 2023, Colorado's Public Health Office verified 3 Hantavirus Pulmonary Syndrome instances, 2 featuring adults past 65. One of them did not survive. Now, I want to outline the 5 actions every adult over 60 should complete this week, ordered from useful up to the absolute most vital move you can make. And I urge you to remain through number 1 because it is the step hardly anyone takes and the explanation will resonate deeply. Entering at number 5, conduct a full rodent inspection of every closed area on your property this week. Not next month, this week. That includes your garage, basement, attic, garden shed, all outbuildings, crawl spaces, and any parked vehicles left idle long-term. Search for rodent clues, droppings resembling tiny dark rice grains, chew marks on wood, plastic, or packaging, nesting bits from torn paper, insulation, or cloth, oily streaks along walls from repeated rodent paths, and the characteristic stale smell of active rodent presence. Avoid inspecting by crouching low and inhaling inside tight spots unprotected. Step back, fling open doors and windows first, and ventilate the area at least 30 minutes before entry. Should you spot rodent signs, skip sweeping, skip vacuuming, and skip stirring anything with a broom. I will detail the correct approach when we reach number 2. This inspection matters because University of New Mexico biology research showed nearly 12% of deer mice captured in countryside zones carried the virus, 12%. That equates to about 1 in 8 mice posing a living health threat. And for your body past 70, the innate immune reaction, the instant frontline defense that strikes invaders before adaptive immunity activates, operates at only about 40% of the speed it had at age 40. You lack the safety buffer a younger person enjoys. The smart pairing tip: perform this check with a companion. Bring someone along for assistance and so another person knows your location and can assist quickly if breathing issues arise in a confined area. Now stay engaged because number 4 is something most people misunderstand dangerously. Number 4 involves correct personal safety gear, and I must be exact since the choice of gear makes a huge difference. Upon entering any zone showing rodent signs, you must use an N95 respirator mask, not a surgical mask, not fabric, but a certified N95 that seals firmly around nose and mouth and blocks at least 95% of airborne particles. A typical surgical mask lets air leak at the sides and offers virtually zero defense against aerosolized hantavirus particles small enough to bypass those openings with each breath. You also require disposable nitrile gloves to guard hands from direct contact with feces or nesting debris. For heavy infestations, a disposable Tyvek coverall or old clothes you can bag and launder in hot water right away makes sense. I realize this may seem excessive. I realize it feels dramatic for a simple garage visit, yet consider it this way. The safety gear runs about $15 to $20 at any hardware outlet. A typical ICU day runs $3,000 to $10,000. And no sum restores lung capacity damaged by Hantavirus Pulmonary Syndrome. Past age 75, the body sheds roughly 35% of its breathing reserve, the extra capacity that activates under lung strain. Your margin is slimmer than you realize. Combine the gear with pre-ventilation. Open every window and door in the affected space and let fresh air flow for at least 30 minutes prior to entry. This sharply lowers the density of floating virus particles. Now let me cover number 3, and this is the step I watch people mishandle nearly every occasion. Once rodent evidence appears and you prepare to tidy, the single most critical rule is this: never dry sweep, never dry vacuum, and never employ a leaf blower on rodent droppings. Those moves turn virus particles airborne and generate an infectious mist you will breathe straight into your lungs. Instead, the CDC advises a precise method. Thoroughly moisten the zone with disinfectant liquid, whether store-bought or a blend of 1 and 1/2 cups household bleach to 1 gallon water. Allow it to penetrate for at least 5 minutes. Then, still wearing your N95 and gloves, use paper towels or throwaway cloths to lift the soaked material and seal it at once in a plastic bag. That bag goes inside another sealed bag before disposal in a lidded trash bin. Wipe every surface rodents used with the same bleach mix, mop solid floors with it, steam clean rugs where feasible. This damp cleaning approach stops particles from floating and slashes exposure danger by an estimated 90% versus dry sweeping, per New Mexico Department of Health guidelines. For your maturing immune system, this is no optional step. It marks the line between tolerable risk and possibly lethal exposure. Right now, I want to interrupt briefly for all viewers. If this material helps you, and I believe it does, please spend 5 seconds and hit the like button under this video, plus subscribe if you have not yet. I post fresh guidance weekly aimed at adults over 60, and the YouTube system promotes these videos to more people who need them only when you interact. So subscribe, and forward this to anyone you cherish. It costs nothing yet might preserve a life. Now, number 2, and this surprises audiences every time I mention it. Number 2 focuses on recognizing symptoms precisely enough to respond swiftly, because the gap from symptom start to the irreversible point in hantavirus runs not in days, but hours. Here is the exact symptom cluster that demands an emergency room visit at once. Not urgent care, not a doctor's appointment 2 days later, but the ER today. Fever exceeding 101 degrees Fahrenheit, plus muscle pain, especially in large thigh and back groups, paired with growing shortness of breath that intensifies hourly, even if it starts subtly, in anyone with possible rodent contact in the prior 1 to 8 weeks signals a medical crisis. You must inform the emergency physician directly and clearly. I may have encountered hantavirus. I was around rodents. Please test for it. Never presume the doctor will link the clues. In a hectic ER, hantavirus rarely tops the list of possibilities. You become your strongest defender in that moment. Research in Annals of Internal Medicine showed patients who disclosed possible hantavirus exposure to their doctor inside the first 24 hours of breathing symptoms achieved far superior results than those identified later. Prompt awareness leads to faster transfer to a center equipped with an ECMO machine. That means extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, basically an external lung supporting respiration while your system battles the virus, and quicker entry to the intensive, supportive measures that boost survival odds. Past 65, your inflammatory reaction is both diminished and erratic, a process Stanford University School of Medicine researchers label inflammaging, meaning your body may not signal illness as strongly as a younger adult's. You might sense milder symptoms than reality warrants. Treat every sign seriously and move quickly. And now, number 1, the single most powerful action every adult over 60 must take this week. Are you ready? Here it is. Have a direct, specific conversation with your primary care physician.